Hi, you guys. This is Valerie. I'm going to just give you a quick video about some ideas for you in figuring out either writing a note or a comment for either the ELR or the LLR if you guys couldn't make it to the training. Let's just start by defining each one. A comment is an article on one case and just that case and what the significance is of that case in the area of law that it was decided. So, if you write a case about the First Amendment, you talk about what the impact of that particular case was within First Amendment jurisprudence. A note, on the other hand, is a bigger paper. You talk more about the background of the law, the policy behind it, what the policy implications are as a result of the topic that you choose. For instance, a policy based paper might be something, this is actually fairly novel, like just happened within the news, but you know how, like in Charlottesville, that guy got fired from marching in the white supremacy thing. Well, that guy's the person who fired him from Berkeley. He's a private individual, but is it okay for a private individual to fire somebody for their personal views done outside of their employment? It's an open question. Is that something that the law should regulate? That's a policy based paper that would require you to look at First Amendment, employment law. You're bringing in a lot of different things at the same time. A cool topic, but a harder topic to write. A harder paper. A comment is more of like a book report. A note is a more sweeping paper. Okay, let's just go through a few ideas here. My favorite kind of papers are ones that use a case as a jump, either as a comment or as a jumping off point to talk about a bigger issue. And the reason I say this is that it's important for you guys to pick cases, to pick topics that are rooted in cases and codes, because you have to footnote every sentence almost. And because of that, you want to pick something that there's a lot of sources for you to draw from in your footnotes. So let's, first off, we're going to go over to, I'm going to give you my first place that I want you guys to go for topics, okay? And this search falls under the category of, I have no idea what I want to write about, okay? So I'm going to say Circuit Court of Appeals, and I'm going to quote it, okay? I'm very broad. We can get more specific later. I'm going to take you guys over to Law 360. It's a really, really cool database where attorneys write about cutting edge areas of the law. So I'm going to click search. And then I'm going to click over. It's a secondary source. So I'm going to move to secondary material. And now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to move to sources. I'm going to click on Law 360, Expert Analysis. Here's the thing about law reviews, really important, okay? You don't want to look at something that is older than a year or year and a half. If you look at a topic that's older than that, you will be preempted. So what I want you to focus on is the new stuff in the law. The new stuff will make sure that you haven't been preempted, that someone else hasn't already written on your topic. The best place for you to find topics is in the news or where we are right now. If you guys think of a topic in your own head and you think it's a good idea, I guarantee you someone else will have also thought that was a good idea and written an article on it already. So in order to eliminate frustration, you look at the new things that have come out. And once something new comes out, a new case, a new statute, it allows you to write about that subject all over again and talk about why that is an interesting, compelling thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say in here, okay, 2016 or 2017, like this, and I'm going to click search. This is going to allow me just to focus on the newer things that came out. In the interest of time, I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. Some of these things might be good for you. I pointed this out. The anti-SLAPP decisions, number 4. I think you should look at that. Let me just click in really quick so I can show you. I just want to give you a little bit of language about what I look for when I figure out if a topic is worthwhile or not. Okay, so this says the California Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit issued important opinions. Okay, good to know. Interpreting this particular statute. It's good to write about California specific things when you are on a California journal. If you want to do litigation, this is a nice thing for you to be able to talk about on interviews that you go on. So it says here, look at this. It says this once again broadly interpreted, construing its application. Okay, so it says here the Ninth Circuit issued important opinions. Well, it's good to know. And then it tells you that whether or not they reversed it, you go through here and you can figure out if this is something that you want to write on, okay? In picking a case as a comment, you want to make sure that not every case is created equal. You want to make sure there's tension in the opinion. So what I mean by that is that pick a case where the upper court overruled the lower court. It's a case of first impression. It moves the law in some way that has not been moved before. Something big has happened in this case. Because if you pick a case where it's a standard application of the law and everyone agrees with everyone, you don't have enough to write about, and it's going to be hard for you to meet your page limit. You want to get something that's interesting. So, okay, this is actually also a really good one, the year in trademark. If you scroll down here and you start looking, this is great because what it's doing is it's saying this particular case brought a new challenge to the statute following the U.S. Supreme Court's decision. Great, a statute. And what's happening is that this particular statute is being challenged and that the Ninth Circuit reversed the holding. Great, you want to see that kind of language? And what you're really looking at here is this would probably be more of like a note. You would look at the statute that's at issue, look at the legislative history behind it, and see if the Ninth Circuit really did a good job of interpreting that particular statute. This actually could be a note too, a comment too, either way. Okay, scroll down here. I'm actually going to go straight. There's other stuff that might be good for you, okay? Net neutrality, if you're interested in that. I'm just going to go straight here, though, to number 15, Van Patten. I'm going to click in here. The reason I like this is, again, it's a piece of legislation that is being interpreted by a court. Good for a note, good for a comment, and this is like an interesting kind of highly litigated area now. And you can tell, if you read this guy, obviously, right, he's very, he works for Robbins Kaplan, and he's a business-friendly guy, because you can see this is, but at the very least, a welcome refuge for companies under siege. So this guy clearly supports business interests. Let's say you're like, wait a second, what about the consumer in this? Then you can write a paper that argues the consumer point of view, looking at the statute and all that kind of stuff. Okay, moving on. So this is just one. Now let's say you know what you want. I was very broad, right? I said Circuit Court of Appeals. If you know what you want to write about, stick it in here and see if someone else has already written about it, First Amendment, for instance, okay? And just see what's been on there already. Or if you want to keep Circuit Court of Appeals, you can search within your results to see if there's a particular case or interesting idea that's come up in the area of law that you're interested in. All right, now we're going to move over to the news, and we're going to spend the rest of this time in the news. So I'm going to go up here, and this is going to fall again my second favorite paper is a circuit split. That's where, let's say, the Fourth Circuit rules one way, the Ninth Circuit rules another. This is a note, and that your paper is then going to look at each approach and talk about which approach you think is right and why, and that the Supreme Court should probably grant cert so that there's continuity among the circuits. So this is an easy, good paper to write. The reason is because it is rooted in cases and codes, and that is the best, that's the most straightforward paper for you to write. And there's a lot of interesting stuff out there this year. So you would go like this, okay? Just follow me. You don't have to know about the terms and connectors. I'm going to say circuit, /2, split, ! And then I'm going to click here. I'm going to search. I'm going to go to the news. I'm going to go over here to show more. I'm going to go to the news. This is the key thing that's coming up right now. You must focus on the new. or you will be preempted. So you want to resort this from newest to oldest. All right, this actually just came out like today. Medicare exhaustion and a brewing circuit split. Interesting, something you could think about. Striking down law, Long Island law targeting day laborers. Second Circuit courts split on standing. You could look at this. Ninth Circuit. Here, there's a couple here that are kind of interesting. If you scroll down here, oh, this is actually interesting here. See how Louis Vuitton seeks Supreme Court review to resolve purported circuit split on trademark dilution. Let me just tell you this. If you want to get published, don't pick this topic, because if the Supreme Court comes out with the decision while you're still writing your paper will be moot, because the Supreme Court will have already spoken as to the right approach. And you're here talking about the two different approaches. If you don't care about getting published, I might take a peek at this, because this is going to go through each of the cases, each of the approaches, trademark parity analysis, circuit split, okay? If you like some of this stuff and you want to keep it for later, just remember you can save it up in your folder up here, okay? Ninth Circuit clarifies standard for article, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so these are just ideas for you. Remember, this falls under the topic of I don't really know what I want to write about, but I want to write a note, and a split sounds good. If you have an area of law that you're interested in, then you can stick it in here. Employment, immigration, whatever it is that you think might be interested in, you could then stick it in here and search within your results by your subject matter. Okay. I'm just going to kind of give you a couple other ideas, okay? One of the things that law reviews like to write about is the idea that technology is very fast moving, but the law moves very slowly. So as new things come up, how is the law dealing with those new things? So this would be like, a good example is, well, what's going on with the Internet of Things, okay? How are they regulating that? What's going on with drones and privacy? What new regulations are going on with drones and privacy? Oh, sorry. You see what I mean? If that is a written about topic, this drone and privacy thing, but if there's a new article or something out there on it, it lets you write about it again, okay? Other things that might be interesting for you, just remember you want to resort from newest to oldest. I kind of like some of these newer things, like I mentioned earlier, sort of a policy-based papers, like, is it okay for private companies like Facebook and GoDaddy to restrict access to white national groups? They're not government actors. Is it okay for them to do that? It's just another idea. So use the news to help you understand what's new and what's interesting. So now we're going to move to preemption, okay? Preemption is like this. The big definition is you are preempted if someone else has written on your topic. But there's a lot of caveats within that preemption definition. So if you want to write on an article and the last article you see on it is 5 years old, you're not preempted, because as the law moves, it allows you to write on that topic again. So what I want you to think about law review as is sort of like legalized plagiarism. You get to cite to this full body of law review articles that are out there already, and as long as something new has happened, then you get to then focus your paper on the new stuff, but take that body of law review articles in order to help you with your arguments and your citations, your footnotes, things like that. Sometimes I analogize it to like a cake. The frosting is the new stuff, and the bottom layers are how the law has evolved over time, and you're focusing on that new frosting element. So that's why you really want to look at stuff that's not very long, that's not very old. So for instance, this is how you do it. Let's say you pick a case. You want to write either a comment, which is on one case, or you're going to write on a note, and you're going to use this case as a jumping off point to talk about bigger issues. I would take the citation, so I'm going to say 824, the citation that you want to write about, F third, 421, and I'm just going to search on it. Okay, this case has to do with cell phone pinging, kind of like Serial, the podcast, and whether or not it's a Fourth Amendment violation to use that cell phone ping to determine location. Good example of technology moving quickly and the law, maybe not being able to keep up with it, or how do you interpret, the law in terms of this new factual scenario. So what you do, and interestingly, this just came out in May 31st, 2016, and there's already a lot of law review articles written on this. But what's cool and would be a great topic is that actually the Fifth Circuit just split with the Fourth Circuit on this. So if you wanted to write a circuit split on this, you can. So what I'm going to first do is just Shepardize it, okay? This is what I want you to do. Take your citation, Shepardize it. Then you're going to go over here to Other Citing Sources. See this? Then you're going to go to Law Reviews. Okay, this thing came out in May, a little over a year ago. There's 25 Law Review articles on it. Click it. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to read the title and the date. Title, date. If something's really old, you're not preempted. If something's new and you don't want to write on this issue, reasonable zones of privacy, then you're not preempted. But let's say you do. Let's say that you want to write on something that's similar to this. You can maybe take and argue an opposing view, make a different argument than this paper is arguing, and then you're still not preempted. So basically, you're preempted when you see an article that's very recent, that cites the same kind of things you want to cite, and basically makes the same argument that you want to make. That means you're preempted. But you can kind of tell when you read the titles, third-party doctrine and physical location, the privacy implications of warrantless acquisitions. Okay, this is actually could be really on point if you want to write a comment on this. Okay, 2017, something to think about. Now, let's say you're writing a more broad note, not something that's necessarily attached to the case. Sort of like how I said earlier, let's say you wanted to write on like the First Amendment concept and how that relates to personal employment. Can you get fired for, no, I said private employer, sorry. There's a lot of ways to come at this. This is how I did it. The way you do this is you want to go to the actual law reviews that are already there. The difference here is that we went through Shepards, and Shepards keeps track of every time your case has ever been cited, ever, including law reviews. So it's a really easy way to see. If your topic is not case-based, then you have to go to the law review. So let's go here. And then we are going to go over to secondary legal. And then we are going to click on Law Reviews and Journals. Notice there's already 300 some odd articles written on this. This is really important. You have to resort from newest to oldest. Okay, do you guys see this? Resort. And then you do the same thing. You look at the titles, you look at the date. Titles, date. The best way out is through changing employment. Okay, so this has to do with Illinois law specifically, my guess is. And if you want to write something that's California-based, then you wouldn't be preempted. Go through here, contracting a rubric for analyzing morality clauses. You're not really focused on that. This is more like at-will employment, so that doesn't preempt you. Laws, Tinder, you're not writing about Tinder. So just by reading the titles, you can figure out a lot. If you see a title that you think, uh-oh, you look at the date that it's recent, then you click in and you read it, okay? And what I suggest you do is most of the articles have like a little roadmap, and the roadmap will kind of like lay out what it is, like, article proceeds in 4 parts. Here's the roadmap, part 1, part 2, part 3. This will tell you if you're preempted if you look at the roadmap. Okay, that's pretty much all I have to say. If you guys have individual questions, you can send me a note. I'm going to also attach the handout to the class when I email you guys with the link. Okay, so I hope that was helpful to you. And if you have questions, let me know.